Hello and welcome. This is the Market Wrap on Bloomberg Quint Live. Let's take a look at how we've seen the trading session pan out today and what markets have done through the course of the week. The Nifty has advanced by around 0.5% with gains coming in Yes Bank, Ultratech Cement, Britannia Industries and Tech Mahindra. A day of strength specifically for Britannia Industries, and Kotak Mahindra also recovers after a volatile bunch of sessions. On the losing end, Power Grid under pressure, in fact under further pressure, and Cipla, Innocent Bank and Tata Motors among others which did lose out in trade. What about the broader markets? There were some very large movers, and we did have AU Small Finance Bank advance by 10%, Garwari Technical Fibers, Indostar Capital Finance advancing by 8%, All Cargo Logistics. So a lot of these companies did move ahead with heavy volumes too. Zensar Technologies, on the other hand, reacting to earnings, as was the case for PNB Housing Finance too. Edelweiss and Prestige Estates among others, which were also under a tad bit of pressure. But what about the week? How have the benchmarks done through the course of the week? A 0.8% decline for the benchmarks. Bharti Infratel stands out, up 12%, followed by Yes Bank, Grasim Industries, Bharti Airtel. L&T, of course, also advancing on the back of a steady outlook with respect to the order book. UPL, on the other hand, along with Coal India, ONGC and Tata Motors, remain under pressure, but it is where the broader market is where we are seeing a lot more traction. And on a weekly basis, when it comes to the NSE 500, I'm sure we will have a lot more in terms of a sharper movement. So we do have Vodafone Idea advancing by 34%, AU Small Finance Bank, Canfin Homes, Westlife Development, Johnson Controls, Hitachi, all of them moving on account of earnings and gaining too. With a lot of momentum. Edelweiss Financial Services, there's just a lot of bad news surrounding this one, which is why it is the biggest loser on the index through the course of the week. Reliance Power, Gayatri Projects and ITI among others. But we're watching out for some of these big movers as far as the earnings concerned. And talking about earnings, let's also take a look at the big ones that came through the week. So we did have asset quality concerns and slippages concerns coming in for Kotak Mahindra Bank and Axis Bank. Zee Entertainment, the earnings did disappoint, specifically advertising revenues which fell. We had Ultratech Cement as well as JSW Steel miss estimates, and Larsen and Toubro, of course, maintained its guidance. A relatively robust one, at least as far as the order book outlook is concerned. Asian Paints, on the other hand, did see lower raw material costs, which pushed ahead operational profitability. But on that note, let's talk about a handful of other events that actually shaped up our markets. So on Monday, the International Monetary Fund cut its global growth forecast, mainly dragged by slowdown in India, and IMF expects India to grow 4.8% in 2019 and 5.8% in 2020. And it wasn't such a festive December quarter for airlines either. India's air passenger traffic grew just 5.8%, the slowest pace in 6 years. The Ahmedabad bench of the NCLT admitted Reliance Naval and Engineering for insolvency. The decision came after legal proceedings stretched out for over 18 months. And on Tuesday, Uber announces its decision to sell Uber Eats to Zomato in a $172 million deal. Uber will get about 9.9% stake in Zomato as a part of the deal. And then on Wednesday, more than 250 fixed depositors of Dewan Housing Finance moved the Supreme Court, challenging the decision to restart lending. They want their dues to be paid first. Shriram Capital halted the three-way merger with its NBFC arms. The decision was made after the Reserve Bank of India asked the group to cut its stake in its insurance business. The Supreme Court also deferred the hearing cases challenging the constitutional validity of the Citizenship Amendment Act, and the Apex Court referred the anti-CAA pleas to a larger constitutional bench. And on Thursday, India's telecom operators got some relief. The government said it will not take any coercive action against them if they fail to clear additional gross revenue dues, at least until further orders by the Supreme Court. And lastly, the Reserve Bank of India expanded debt investment limits under the voluntary retention route. And this window allows the investors, easier rules, but there is a lock-in period. From there on, let's take a look at what we can expect as we move into trade next week. And I'm going to move on to, well, the futures and options space. Options specifically based on the cues they are giving us right now with respect to levels we can watch out for on the Nifty. So on the higher end, it's firmly established that for now is the 12,500 mark, which will give us enough amount of resistance as far as the Nifty upside is concerned. On the lower end, while we do have max OI in the 12,000 put, there is enough amount of accumulation around the 12,200 put, and considering we just have a week in expiry, well, for now it does seem like a 300-point range between 12,500 and 12,200. So we'll be watching out for, well, some of these levels as we move into trade next week. But what else are we watching out for as we move into trade next week? Well, of course, right at the top will be earnings, because we will have ICICI Bank will announce earnings tomorrow, and we'll have its reaction on Monday. But on Monday, we will also have the likes of Dr. Reddy's and HDFC Limited announce earnings. Maruti Suzuki from the passenger vehicles one will be the big one to watch out for on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we will have the Bajaj FinTwins, Finance as well as FinServ, announce earnings. On Thursday we will have Bajaj Auto, Bharti Airtel, Bharti Infratel, IOC and Tata Motors. And on Friday is going to be another action-packed day when it comes to the large cap earnings. So we will have HUL and ITC. In fact, that's going to be pretty much the FMCG heavy weightage out there. Power Grid, SBI and Tech Mahindra, all of them announcing earnings just a day before the union budget. And speaking of that, there's a lot happening on the economic front as well. We need to take a look at certain events, and based on that, on Wednesday, the 29th of January, we'll get the FOMC rate decision. Of course, that's not to do with the Indian markets, but well, speaking about the Indian economy, on Friday, the 31st January, the budget session of the parliament will begin, and the economic survey will be tabled. Of course, we'll also be keeping an eye out on India's GDP data, and of course, the day later, on Saturday, we will also have the presentation of the union budget. So plenty to watch out for, and well, we need to keep an eye on the volatility as well, considering we are getting into a heavy week when it comes to not only earnings but also plenty of economic data, and just a week before the union budget. So we'll be watching out for a whole host of these cues as we move on to next week. But on that note, it's a wrap on the markets, but there's lots more lined up. Stay tuned to Bloomberg.